Farmers celebrate as the long battle over the Farm Bill is settled. On this episode of Grow, we will have Nebraska reaction. Plus, we'll travel to York to meet some farm families making a difference with university research and introduce a new segment with our very own market analyst to break down the latest trends. Long awaited, the Farm Bill finally gets the president's signature. It's a landmark piece of legislation, $1 billion in spending, much of that for nutrition programs like food stamps, which saw cuts. Some areas did see increases like farmers markets. Our Grow co-host Marilyn Barnett breaks it all down.
Steve, it has been a very long process. We all know this. And some say, well, it isn't a perfect piece of legislation. It's long overdue. The Senate passed the bill 68-32 last Tuesday. The House passed the Farm Bill report last week. So now let's take a look at what this all means. First, this bill will prevent a spike in milk prices. It also sets a fine line on food labeling. Meat in the grocery store, for instance, has to say where the animal was born, slaughtered, and where the meat was processed. Now on to the money side of it. This bill means a huge change in 80 years of farm subsidies. It will end direct payments. Those are subsidies that went to farmers whether they planted anything or not. Instead, this bill will give subsidies for farmers to buy crop insurance. Now on to the food stamps part of it, a huge part of the bill. It was also a huge fight as well. It's a big portion of the cost. Food stamps will be cut by $8 billion. But that will only affect people in 16 states and the District of Columbia. Steve, back to you.
Thanks, Marilyn. It didn't happen overnight, but for many area farmers, they are singing the praises. Congress passing the Farm Bill a week after the House approved the measure.
It accomplishes a lot of what we wanted to do. It provides some security to farms and ranches so we know what the rules are as we move forward. Crop insurance was included in the bill, which is a very important piece of supporting agriculture.
Moving forward, groups like Farm Bureau now work on other issues that were left out of the final Farm Bill.
Provisions related to the EPA that were not included in the Farm Bill where we need to still do some work, and we'll be able to do that outside of the Farm Bill. We had also hoped that the spill control systems related to fuel would have been in the Farm Bill. Those changes were not in there, but we'll continue to work for those.
Steve Nelson says another benefit of the final package is that it promotes trade, and farm exports are worth $7 billion to Nebraska. Only 4 states do more international business in agriculture. Now a check on crop and livestock conditions out there. The USDA reports dry weather caused soil moisture supplies to drop in January. Topsoil moistures rated 44% short and no surplus. For the field crops, winter wheat rated 15% poor, 40% good. As for livestock and pastures, stock water supplies rated 82% adequate. Hay and forage supplies rated 91% adequate. Cattle and calf condition sits at 83%. Sheep and lamb condition rated mostly 94% good. Nebraska cattle producers now face some new regulations, having to report illness shortly after they're found. The Nebraska Egg Department is working to limit the spread of trichomoniasis in the state. That disease can lead to infertility and miscarriages in cattle. Cattle producers must report a diagnosis to the state within 5 days. Ranchers also must notify neighbors within 14 days. The state veterinarian says that disease can be devastating to a herd, and sharing the information can help neighbors protect their animals. The owners of a silo that collapsed hope to have it open in time for this fall's harvest. CPI of Hastings and the Lansing trade group say it may take some time to determine why a silo collapsed at the elevator near Fairmont. 7 other silos at the facility that opened less than a year ago remain intact. Bob Fifield of CPI says all the silos are being emptied as a precaution before demolition of the damaged silo. The grain is being moved to the company's other locations. While passage of that Farm Bill should bring some certainty to the nation's farmers, they still face some very volatile times in the market. From GPS in the tractor to soil moisture monitors, everything that falls in the category of precision agriculture is gaining popularity. Farmers like Lon Bone of Gibbons say with corn prices dropping by almost half to $4 a bushel, they're looking for every way to spend less on fertilizer and water.
Those profit margins are going to be razor thin, and variable rate offers a way to avoid misapplication and overapplication of fairly expensive inputs, fertilizers and chemicals.
Variable rate technology is showing up in many ways, with equipment that can change the amount of fertilizer, seed, or water applied to different parts of the field. Farmers say not only can they save a buck, they say it's the right thing to do to use less chemicals and protect the environment. Nebraska's young farmers and ranchers are definitely excited about all the technology on the farm these days, but they are concerned about the public's perception of agriculture. That's from a survey of Nebraska Farm Bureau's Young Farmers and Ranchers Conference. More than half said the growth in technology, in seeds, machinery, and the general scope of precision farming are the most exciting. Other top vote getters, the recent rebound in profitability in the beef sector and optimism about growing opportunities for young people. As for concerns, nearly 25% of respondents said the growing public disconnect with farming and ranching, as well as negative publicity surrounding some farming practices. High tech has invaded most every aspect of Nebraska agriculture, but not if you ask kids. But now there's hope for some lucky Grand Island second graders. They won a contest sponsored by Nebraska Farm Bureau. With help from their teachers, they made a video featuring an original song about what they'd learned.
Agriculture, from what stuff comes from. Like if we didn't have Nebraska agriculture, we wouldn't have stuff like clothes or any stuff.
They'll be visiting farms in the Kearney area, including a dairy farm, to learn about processing milk and cheese.
You know, they don't just show up on the shelves in the supermarket. You get them, start out at a farm, whether it's a crop growing farm or an animal farm. Either way, it's really important just to know the steps of that it goes through to get to the actual store.
The kids didn't know they'd won until surprise visitors came to their class this week. Here's a look at the video they sent in.
Agriculture, agriculture, what is agriculture? Agriculture, agriculture, what is agriculture? Oil for the cookies and butter and mayonnaise too. How about food for animals? Many things too. It all comes from soybeans. Oh yeah, soybeans. Agriculture, agriculture, what is agriculture? Agriculture, agriculture, what is agriculture? Say what? And toothpaste too. It all from plants for me and you. Without agriculture, we might not be
Whether it's a farmhouse bed and breakfast or tours of vineyards, Nebraska offers a lot of interesting opportunities in the area of agritourism. NTV's Alyssa Willard has more.
It's family owned by my mom and dad and brother and sister and I. It's been a family venture.
It's a good way to connect, to come back to family. The nieces and nephews thought I had saved their legacy.
For many in the agritourism industry, it's a new opportunity to bring the family back together and to revitalize the farm. The 3-day agro-eco-tourism workshop is bringing together the family values of the farm as well as new ideas for an industry that continues to grow.
Agritourism is very important, especially for rural Nebraska. It's a way of getting people out to experience that rural way of life. And more we're seeing that that's where the trend's going. People want to get away from the city, the noise, the confusion, and just to be able to enjoy that peace and quiet.
Many at the workshop are new to the agritourism side of agriculture, like the Byrnes, who own a dairy farm but hope other ventures will keep more of their large family nearby.
We've got 12 children, and we want very much so to bring those children home and make them a part of the operation if we can substantiate having them there.
Their son Raymond has found his own niche on the family farm with a stock tanking business along the Cedar River. What was once a leisurely summer activity for him has turned into a popular business venture.
Basically, I started it because it was something I enjoyed doing. I mean, I went out and bought a couple of stock tanks, and my friends would come over, and that's, and I figured if I enjoy it, why can't other people enjoy it? So I just slowly started building up, bought 5 tanks, and then next summer I had 15, and then 25, and then 30. Just basically it grows every year.
Increased attendance at the yearly workshops are proof that more and more people are interested in the different facets of farm life, from bed and breakfasts and vineyards to stock tank trips, all in a state many feel is worth exploring.
Think of all the people that go across Nebraska every single day, and they don't see it as a place to stop and visit. And it's a great place to stop and visit.
Up next, we'll look at a disease that's a concern for the state's pork producers. Still to come, Kent Boughton will let us know all this moisture we've seen in the last week, what difference that may make in the droughts.